Hi, welcome to Balisong Meet the Makers. I'm your host, Chell Wong, and today we have Griffith Page of GP Blades. Griffith is known for his out-of-this-world custom Balisongs, including the Jawbone series, which you might have seen my videos on, as well as some other wacky creations like the Bally Scythe. So thank you for coming on, Griffith. How are you doing today?
Hey, Shell, I'm doing just fine. Excited to be here. Excited to get the word out.
I am so excited to have you on. I absolutely adore this battle song. So if you haven't seen my unboxing video or my review, which I don't know if that's up yet, basically commissioned Griffith to custom make me a jawbone that was really light and really neutral, and he delivered this. It is a fucking beauty, and I absolutely adore it. So I've always wanted to have a custom maker on this show at some point, and I'm more than happy to have you on here. My first question, I asked you if you could demonstrate a fan on this, and you said I can try, which gives me the impression that you're not really much of a battle song flipper. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I the closest to Balisong would be nunchucks for me.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Nunchucks are really cool, but they are different.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I gotta ask, how did you get into making balisongs if you are not a balisong flipper?
That's a great question. Well, I started off making fixed blades. So as you know, most knife makers do, we'll dive into taking a piece of steel, drilling some holes, making some things happen, and I actually have very, very old first one of the first knives that I've done. You can see it's really kind of grody and just, but basically you're talking about, working flat
Oh,
materials and being perpendicular. So this would have been one that I did with a, gosh, propane forge before I had even gotten into doing some of the higher end materials. And I had read somewhere that the Balisong is kind of like the fixed blade knife maker's folding knife. So I did a little research on, sort of what they need, um, what you need to do to make one, and I sort of just hacked at it. First ones were very, very rough, but that's sort of how it goes, and it just took off from there. I mean, I sort of fell in
yeah,
love with.
very few people.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Uh, in case this doesn't get edited out, there is a really bad delay between us. But I was gonna say, very few people nail it on the first try. Most people tend to have some real stinkers in the beginning, and if you have the tenacity to keep up with it, then you can get really good at things. But as long as you don't give up in the beginning.
Absolutely. Never know until you fail 1,000 times.
So that first fixed blade, I think it looked quite rusty. Unfortunately, the resolution is pretty rough on my
Oh
end.
yes,
But what blade steel was that? Rust?
that was rust. It's just been out here. Honestly, that was probably a 1095, uh, just high carbon blade. Like I said, used a propane forge. I've now got an even heat kiln, that I use for heat treating.
All right.
So I've definitely put in the investment to make sure that I have the tools I need. You know.
So you started with fixed blades,
Mhm.
and then you went to Balison's because you said because you read that it was the fixed blades folder, which I think is an interesting comparison. But how was that shift? And like, did it was it complicated? Was it tricky? Was there any unexpected difficulties?
Well, for sure, the biggest difficulty was upping my precision game. Um, Before getting into doing any kind of balisongs, I didn't even have a milling machine, so I was doing a lot of
Oh
things with the
man.
drill press, and that just does not last very long. So I got my little milling machine over here, and really, it's about being perpendicular to the flats. I mean, one of the things that you have to do with a fixed blade, like I said, you're drilling pinholes in the handles, and if those aren't straight, then your pins don't line up. You know, this happens all the time on Forged in Fire, where these guys just haphazardly drill holes at whatever angle. Now, for a balisong, perpendicularity matters because you're talking about long parts going into a thin channel, and so, things like trying to eliminate tap, trying to tune right, that all requires, pretty good tolerances and pretty good perpendicularity. So it just shifts from there. Now, that's nothing to say about some of the other fixed blade options, but that's generally the leaping off point is, flat materials and keeping things right and true and 90 degrees.
Yeah, there is certainly, obviously, a lot more moving parts to a balisong than a fixed blade. Obviously, if you have handles that are a different material, then you're going to need to have them pinned in, and that's pretty obvious. Um, but it's you probably have, a amount of leeway that you can have, but certainly with balisongs, you got to make sure that they're like parallel all the way through from the pivots down to the spacer. You got to make sure that the pivot holes are perpendicular, perfectly reamed. You got to make sure that the surface level grind is flat here on the tang. There's so many things, and with how much a balisong is moving in just a short little bit, like that is quite demanding, and it takes a lot just to get it functioning, let alone good. Um, I guess my next question is, you started making balisongs. How did you get to the the jawbone, which I think is maybe what you're most known for?
Sure. I want to say I was hanging out back at my old place I'm from Maryland. I'm now in North Carolina, so I had a big crew of friends that we would, after we were all done working, they'd all come over. We'd hit some ping pong balls around, kind of hang out, and let the ideas flow. And I've always loved fossils, minerals, things like that. So I think we were just looking up cool pictures, and somebody showed me a skull, and I thought to myself, these Balisong trainers that you'll see, where it's just a flat piece of material with random cutouts to facilitate the lightness and the balance. I thought that was so lazy. I thought that was a sort of a non-artistic answer to the solution. So I wanted to combine sort of my art background with a little bit more of the functional aspect of a trainer balisong versus a bladed one. So I drew up the first jawbone, sort of sketched it out and did a little bit of shading to kind of get an idea. And I really liked the look, and then it just caught on very, very, very fast. Um, Never seen anything like it out in the market before. I've seen, obviously, some people will get their handles carved on like folders. Certainly, that's a big deal with like some of the custom ones. I've seen, I forget the guy's name, but he's very, very good with doing portraits and animals and other things like samurai helmet or a Viking helmet in the side of a folder handle. Um, so I thought, why not just make this look like it's a fossil? I had already done one prior to coming up with the jawbone where I made it look like a flint knapped blade inside of bone handles, sort of like a carved
Whoa.
scrimshaw bone handle. And
Do you
so
have that?
no, unfortunately, I don't actually keep a lot of the things that I make. Balisong wise, they end up getting picked up pretty quick, or they're just ordered. And so a lot of the times it's just photos that I have.
Hey, good business at least. I'm happy to know that when you are making things, you are selling them, because I mean, we all know that money is annoying.
Oh gosh.
um
Yeah.
I guess so one thing I always thought about was Monster Hunter. If anyone have ever seen a Monster Hunter weapon, basically
Oh
you
boy.
fight monsters and you use monster parts to make weapons and armor and stuff like that. So like this jawbone basically kind of makes me think of a lot of weapons might have something with teeth and spikes and like whatnot like that.
Yeah.
Um, but now I'm also kind of curious about your art background, because you said that you had an art background. A lot of people seem to have machining backgrounds, and some people have like gone to school for business. So I guess, can you tell me more about art and your history with it?
Sure. So, growing up, I was always a drawing kid. I always had a sketchbook with me amongst my textbooks, and it got so to the point where my first year of community college, my English professor wanted me to do instead of a research paper, she wanted a research comic. And so I ended up doing sort of like an Edgar Allan Poe takedown with little caricatures and everything, and that was quite fun. I initially thought that my life was going to take me into illustration. I actually have um, illustrated a children's book for a family friend. Um, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, and then of course I went really deep into painting, sculpting, and portraiture. So I had a lot of really good training, sort of color theory, shapes, recognizing form. I think the most brutal was the three-dimensional design course where I I hung a sculpture on a random piece of furniture I had found in the classroom, and the teacher critiqued it as if that was, half of the sculpture. Um, so,
Oh,
well, but she was right because what ends up being the lesson there is that you have to look at the entire experience of what you're producing. And so, a question I get asked a lot is, will you make a blade for this set of handles? And I say, no, because I didn't make those handles. And so now you're not going to have a balance between the energies of what was created. Um, I do now. I don't really draw so much, but I do enjoy doing some paper crafts. So I'll take you back here above my milling machine. I have a big venom coming out the wall. That's actually
that's
paper.
paper?
That's paper. And then so I
Oh my
have
God.
my gargoyle, which is paper that I fortified with fiberglass resin and expanding foam.
Wow.
So it's
Well, it,
essentially a
a
statue.
little higher?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Can you get it a little? Just get the gargoyle is just a little bit out of. Oh, there it is. Okay. I have made some paper crafts of like video game characters, and what's convenient is that if they're like old enough, then there's like a polygon count, and you can break it
Yes.
down into a folding thing. But definitely nothing quite to that level. That's pretty impressive, and I thought I've done some pretty cool things.
Oh, I'm sure you've
Um,
done some
it's
great things.
also nothing. I mean, it's mostly just printing out other people's stuff and
Sure.
whatnot.
Well,
But
that's what these are
one,
too.
oh, okay, that's fair. I love that your teacher let you do a comic. That's just good teacher
Oh,
like adapting for the student and
yes.
making a assignment like that's someone who cares.
She was
I'm a
phenomenal.
teacher. I that's good for me to hear.
Yeah.
I bet.
She was absolutely phenomenal.
It's also kind of funny that the like you've done like so many types of art because like when you were doing sketches for the Jawbone and you were asking me for my thoughts and I was like ooh can blah 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 and this I had no idea you also did like sculpture. You're like a Michelangelo. He did all sorts of stuff like that too.
Yeah,
um
yeah. I definitely want
so
to be a Renaissance man. You've got to be able to you've got to have something physical. So I trained martial arts for a number of years. You've got to have intellectual.
fuck yeah.
You've got to
What do you
have
do?
I actually trained Shotokan karate and then Taekwondo. They're very similar.
Okay,
And then I ended up,
I do Okinawan style karate. It's Uechi-ryu. And I'm learning Aikido.
oh, good.
So martial arts is fucking great. You get it.
Yeah, I really do.
Um, yeah. You just need someone to like be your patron so that you can like live in their house and do art for them.
You know,
I wish people still did that.
that's really how all these famous artists would get by back in, especially in
Oh, I
the
know.
20th century. They would, you're looking at Jackson Pollock. The guy was a drunk, but he still got
A
people
lot
to
of
pay for him.
old musicians were making a lot of church music because that's who had money.
Right.
So like the church just had loads of money to be like, hey, can you write all these hymns? Can you write all these things and whatnot? And so like besides having a patron that you like lived with and made portraits of, like you gotta follow the money.
That's true.
Let's see. I was one of the questions I have on my list is I guess like what are some of your influences in your design philosophy, but I feel like you've already told me that you care a lot about like the overall experience. You care about like the visuals and like there's absolutely gorgeous standout thing. Is there anything that you want to like tackle next in terms of designs? Any like things that you thought about wanting to do? Because I don't know if the Bally Scythe was something that you came up with, or if Old School Balisong
Ah,
commissioned you for that. But
no, well,
that was fucking bonkers looking.
that was a very fun project. He had commissioned me for a ballast scythe that had the perpendicular blade as well as a straight blade. And I think for that one, the most challenge not figuring out the geometry. I figured that out sort of, mock-ups with paper and in my computer using SketchUp. But the most interesting part about that build for me was doing the wood texturing on the handles because
Oh, okay.
that was an entire process of hand carving with a rotary tool and then experimenting on other pieces and seeing if I could get something that looked quite right. Um, where would I like to go next? I would just, it's always a battle to improve tolerances. It's always a battle to improve performance. I would love for my pieces to, I think with yours, I experienced a little bit more delight in making something lighter. So I think I might want to start leaning towards tackling under 5 ounce weights. Um, but again, that usually it comes down to what the client wants. I've had clients with receive a Balisong that was over 6 ounces, and they say it's heavy, but it doesn't feel heavy. And so I guess it's all subjective.
That's
Um,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
go ahead.
I know that some people. Oh, sorry. Again, the delay.
No, I get
I
it.
have heard that some people have flipped other jawbones, and they're like, oh, they're not as much of flippers, but they're such cool art pieces. But this one that I have is such a goddamn good flipper. Um, I also wanted to just point out that I think you said that all your knives are handmade. I just want to make that clear that this shit is not CNC. This is
Yeah,
fucking
I'll show you my
a
mill.
lot of man hours, I
I was going
assume.
to say, well,
Oh, please do.
half the reason I wanted to be in the garage was to sort of
Yes.
showcase my tools because there's
That
so
is
many
why our
guys.
connection is so bad.
I'm sorry. The there's so many guys with Tormox out there, and I figure, that's cool. Good job. You got to go inside and get a good lunch. So I have this little grizzly mill, the little mill drill. This when I bought this was just about $1,000, a little over 1,000 with the stand. Nowadays it's a lot more because inflation and um, let's not get into that money stuff. But I essentially just have
I feel like a decent portion of a lot of my podcasts are just us being like, man, economy sucks. I wish people would buy things.
yeah. I mean, look, I'm just glad that I got the things before I couldn't. But I essentially installed my own DRO, so I've got that precision, and then it's just a number of
What's a
little.
DRO?
Oh, I'm sorry, a digital readout. So essentially, I have, you know, y- a milling machine is kind of like an etch-a-sketch. You're moving wheels to
Huh.
reposition things. Um,
Oh.
so every slot, every hole, every cut that ends up, on the final piece is me cranking wheels and, pulling levers and sometimes I have to do a little hand finishing with some stones and stuff to deburr. Um, I have my little cabinet with all of my cutters, and they're all just carbide tooling. I have, here's a fun one. This is the jig that I use to hold down the handles when I mill them. So I have that all set up. I can screw them down and indicate all the necessary features. Now, the
Gotcha.
crazy thing is my carving station. I get to sit right here. I got this crazy spotlight and my flex shaft rotary tool. So that's how I'm carving the jawbones is with little burrs and end mills and things like that
Gotcha.
by hand.
Yeah. At
But
first, I thought you were gonna say that this like texture up here was like with a manual mill doing like the the wheels, but
Oh
like that, I was
gosh.
like, no way, he's got to be using like a hand drum or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely it's let's see, with that one, because I took the blade steel down in thickness, what I wanted to do was at the sort of like, I guess what would you call them? The hollows between the teeth and the fangs and stuff. I did actually depth that on the mill just with a drill bit so that when I was carving, I'd have a target to go down to for depth. Because a lot of the times, you run the risk of going right through and then, oops, I don't like making mistakes.
Yeah, measure twice, cut once.
That's exactly right.
So, I guess one thing I was curious was I know you said that you were possibly interested in trying to do knives, like lighter knives, but it was based off of the client. Do you mostly do commissions? Do you make knives for your own self and then like for fun, or like what's your process in terms of that? Like, and I guess if you're open to commissions now for the viewers who might be interested in wanting to get something.
So largely, I do commission-based work, especially with the Balisong market being what it is. People have such uh, preferences that you really can't get by. I mean, okay, I'm not going to say that because obviously there are people who get by making a single thing that sort of fits the mold. But for what I do, there's no way I could, sit there and say make 5 jawbones and expect all of them to go. Whereas if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey Griff, I want a snapping turtle jawbone," I could say, "All right, let's figure this out." And then it becomes a little more personal. It becomes a little more like, and it feels less like I'm doing a work and more of like I'm making something for someone. So it feels a little
Yeah.
more special that way. I do make knives for my family and friends when they need them. So
Okay. Yeah.
I've made like kitchen cutlery for my mom and dad. They have some neighbors, one of which used to be a private chef. She's ordered a few of those kitchen knives. I have one for my kitchen because I cook a lot, so I needed a good
Hell
quality
yeah.
knife. Um, and I can't remember if I haven't done many as gifts, but sometimes, you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I totally get you with that like personal feeling. This is like specific. This is a jawbone I commission. It's mine. It's for me, and
Exactly.
it's something that I requested with specifications, and I was like really scared that I'm like, I hope I'm not being a fucking pain in the ass. I'm like, oh, can it be blah blah blah, and all these things. I'm like, oh, and like unfortunately there's just like a little bit of tap on the bite handle, but I'm like way too scared to disassemble it. But like basically like it was designed like I kind of let you basically I said like go wild with like whatever jaw design you want. I like the teeth though, and I like he has some pictures on his Instagram. I think a lot of the knives that you made are not on your Instagram, which is a shame because like you don't have them. um but yeah, and again, you're allowed to post pictures of this. I give you express permission if you have pictures of it. But essentially, like it was a process of him like sending me sketches, and then I would give feedback and be like, "Oh, I like my handles like kind of rounded. I have very sensitive skin, and thankfully, like these grooves here actually like they don't agitate my hands at all, which is great." And the blade, I think I don't remember if you gave me several drafts, but like yeah, they're all hand sketched, and I was like, "Ooh, I kind of like this element or whatever." Also, it's funny because you said trainer, and these teeth they don't they don't slice, but they do puncture. They're very pointy. They're very pointy.
Yes.
But yeah, it's very special, and I really appreciate what you do, and I like that. I'm like really happy that you are able to get commissions, and I guess if are my question right now, are you accepting commissions now? If anyone is watching this, they're like, I need one of these.
I will be shortly. I still have a couple of projects that I'm sort of working through. My ballpark goal is to be taking more by the end of the month. Possibly looking into
Okay,
what's next, August. Gosh, just burn through the summer. We'll take some
I
August
know, right?
commissions and and see where I can go from there. I've already gotten quite a few messages from people sort of asking if my books are open. Uh, it's just a matter of, finishing up what I've got on deck, reordering materials, getting all my abrasives reordered, and getting things going.
All right. Yeah. And it never hurts to message you, I assume. Like if
Never.
you can ask, and if he's like, "Oh, I'm busy until X date," then like, hey, at least you're in his mind and you can be like, "Oh, I'll follow up with you then." Because uh I don't want to say the price out loud in case you change your price in the future. But like message him. I am incredibly happy that what I paid for this is less than what some knives are out there that are like CNC milled. And that's not to say that that's again, I just want to make clear that that isn't to say that knives that cost like X amount of money shouldn't be that expensive. Labor and time and all that thing, like people charge what they're worth and people need to charge whatever they need to in order to afford living and stuff like that. But I just want to say that like for this handmade custom knife, I paid an amount that I was very much like, I can do that, that's fair, especially for like a splurging gift for myself for turning 30. And like it's less than some of my other knives, and this is one of my favorite knives. Maybe one day I might try and see if I can get the smidge of play out of this bite handle, but it's like it's so minor, and like it's so fucking good. And I'm constantly just like, I'll shill for you, man. I don't give a shit. I'll shill
Excellent.
for you.
Excellent. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I definitely try to keep pricing to a reasonable level, understanding that obviously I have to cover cover the material costs, cover tooling costs. I As stupid as it might sound, I don't really worry too much about how much shop time I'm putting in, unless it's an absurd amount. I I got to tell you, there have been some orders where I kind of look at the person and I say, you do realize that I don't have a CNC, right? Some things can just get a little too complicated. That being said, I will still try my best. I mean, I've done some insanely finicky milling to do some very tiny details on some knives before, and it's
Nice.
worth it. It's worth it because at the end of the day, that's the business card that goes out is the piece, you know. Oh
The
yeah, well,
business card that goes out.
yeah,
I got it right here. Here's the other side. And I am a freelance composer, so I know what it means to like make custom things for clients and all that stuff, and working with them and all these things. And sometimes people will ask like really hyper niche things or combinations of genres. I'm like, all right, let's give it a shot. Like give me time, and
yeah.
give me time, and I'll make it exactly what you need to be. And I guess just for reference, it's funny because my birthday is in November. I got it, I think, last month, aka June. And I was like, I commissioned this for my birthday, and everyone's like, "Happy birthday!" And one of my best friends wished me happy birthday, and I was like, dude, my birthday was months ago. He's like, oh, I don't remember. I'm like, you were at my birthday
Oh,
party.
that's terrible.
You were at my house for my birthday party, and it's just really funny.
That is funny.
So like, how many months was that's like? So November, December, January, March, April, May, June. That's like 6 months. Is that standard? I don't really know.
No, it actually,
What your time frame is?
so under normal circumstances, I say normal, what is normal? Um, I could probably knock one out in a matter of a couple months. What happened with this last winter, it had a little bit of family troubles, health issues,
Mm,
things pop up. So I was a little bit less active in the garage as I would like to be. Um, Hopefully, I'm seeing the end of that as we're getting more and more answers. Thankfully, everything going on with me is all good. It's just other family members that
okay,
I'm more concerned with and have had to step away and sort of step up in other areas. But no, I would say
sure,
two to
and
two to
that's
3 months
reasonable.
that should be the feasible build time for nothing too crazy. I mean, if I've got to do some really intricate stuff, there's allowances for that, but two to
Yeah.
2 to 3, but it's all, life is what it is.
Yeah, I was never in any rush, and I would like at times I would like check in on you and be like, oh hey, like I'd like remember, I'm like, oh, how's it going? And you'd always communicate with me. And also if there was like issues, you were like, oh, sorry, I can't ship because like I have to fix my truck or something. Like it was always really easy to communicate with you and always clear. And like I, who is not a psychopath, am not going to be like, how dare you, harumph. Like no, obviously if you have like family things happen for everyone,
Yeah.
and then just everyday life things like, hey, I'm going to be late because my car battery is dead and I gotta get a jump, something like that. It happens to everyone.
Right. And that's
um
that's why I say life
so
is life, you
okay,
know what I mean? And I don't get mad at people for things they can't really control because what are you left with at that point?
yeah, I like to say that I have a long patience, and as long as things are communicated with me, and as long as things are within a degree, like I'm honestly pretty lenient. But there have been times that I've been frustrated with various people who have either just not communicated or have just, I don't know, whatever. But thankfully, I can attest that your customer service is great.
Oh, thank you.
Zero issues on that end. Um, so I guess other things. There's the part of like what makes interviewing you interesting is that you don't have like there's not like the Kraken and the Nautilus or whatever. Like you have the Jawbone, but they're all different, and you have other wacky designs. Um, but I guess, is there anything else that you have made in the past, or anything that you're going to make that's like on the horizon that people should look out for or like check out that you think is particularly interesting?
Sadly, it doesn't. I haven't gotten anything that I'm that ready to talk about yet. Like I said, most of my work is commission based, so usually when the cool ideas roll in, those are the ones that I say, okay, let's go, you know. Um, but I sort of
Gotcha.
just roll with the punches. I mean, right now I've got a shorter Balisong project that I'm making for a client, and then I've also got, wildly enough, a big Rambo knife um, that I've got sitting here in the vise, trying to get the bolsters to line up and get the pins on and everything. It's a very complicated fixed blade, but um, no, moving forward, I just want to keep doing butterfly knives and make things fun, and I want to do some really cool finishes. I got to try combination finishes. I got been working on trying to mix the blackening procedure that I'll do on titanium with also having
Oh.
electrical anodizing, and that can be a little tricky.
Ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
that can be tricky, just trying to get the
Yeah.
surfaces right.
I remember there was a maker who was like, I have developed a blackening for titanium, but I won't tell anyone. And then like several people like figured it out, but I know that there have been like inconsistencies with it, but I don't know if anyone has ever done blackened titanium with color anodization. So that would be very cool to see, if you do pull that off. I would love to, see that.
Yeah.
Um, I have two questions for you.
Okay.
My first one is is there anything you would like to tell our listeners, either just about yourself or your work or knives in general or whatever? Anything to look out for? I know you said that you didn't really have anything, but like anything that you want to impart upon our listeners.
Sure. Stay hydrated. It's hot. You guys got to drink
Yes.
water. Um, if you're growing a lawn, you should also be growing fruits and vegetables because grass is authoritarian, and there's nothing better than eating your own cherry tomatoes. Um, as for knives, a sharp knife is always safer than a dull knife, unless you drop it on your foot. So, closed-toed shoes, please. And I guess just stay safe, everybody.
Yeah, I will say one. We have tried to grow cherry tomatoes growing up, but rabbits and squirrels, mostly rabbits. Oh my god. And I do mostly agree with the sharp knife is safer than a dull knife, but I will say that Balisong flipping a sharp knife hurts more.
Agreed.
um, and my second question, which is more of a dig, but are you ever gonna learn how to flip Balisongs?
Someday I will. Someday I will. I've let's see. I it was years ago that I learned the just generic flip open trick. And like you had said, here's what a fan is, and so I attempted something over my hammock, but I could see where, maybe one day I will. Um,
All right.
I could definitely do, nunchucks here.
Oh yeah. If you have the physical dexterity for it, obviously nunchucks is more shoulders, elbows,
It's
whatever,
all in the
and
wrist.
Balisong's all fingers. Oh, and
Yeah,
wrists. Yeah, wrists, of course.
fingers might be
I was like,
tricky.
what
I
am I
have some
doing?
nerve damage, so
Okay, that's fair. I'll cut you a little slack for that then.
yeah, it might help actually.
And oh yeah, I guess. All right, in that case, get on it.
Yeah, physical therapy, Balisong.
Hell yeah, that's prescribed by Dr. Chell Wong. I'm not a doctor. Don't sue me.
I wrote now.
And I guess we're gonna be wrapping up. I want to just say again that like a lot of custom knives are more lookers than flippers, and I am very very happy to say that this is absolutely both a looker and a flipper. And you were willing to work with me to make it like to my preferences in flipping, lightweight and neutral, essentially. But with that, thank you for tuning into this episode of Balisong Meet the Makers. And like and subscribe for more. Check out my videos for unboxing and like reviewing the Jawbone. And Griffith, where can our listeners find you and our wares? I know you have an Instagram page, but do you have a website?
I don't have a website yet. It's just Instagram and Facebook for now. But maybe someday in the future I'll finally build one out. Who knows? Appreciate you.
Don't use Wix.
No.
I'm telling you right now.
Okay.
Wix jacked up their prices. I don't give a shit. This is my podcast. I can anti sponsor things.
That's right. Shut them down.
But,
Shut them down. End road work.
Your Instagram is GP_blades, I think.
Correct.
Facebook, what is that?
Just same thing. It's all linked in the Instagram as
Okay,
well.
great. And those will be included in the description of this video. And with that, thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope that this audio delay issue isn't too much of a problem. I'm going to be editing out some of this, but hopefully the video will look fine in the end. But if there's any weirdness, it's because of that. But happy flipping, everyone. Take care. Stay hydrated.
Definitely.